A pale rose glow crept over the Arctic horizon as the ice-fjord lagoon emerged from the void of night. Jagged bergs, their surfaces etched in midnight blue and silver, floated like drifting monoliths. On the gravelly shore, the Marine Conservation Institute's field camp stirred to life. Frost-tipped sampling tubes lay arrayed on portable benches. A cluster of solar-powered radar buoys bobbed near the fjord's mouth, their sensors blinking orange. Dr. Annika Sorensen, wrapped in a down parka and wool balaclava, scanned her tablet's live feed. High-resolution sonar indicated clam beds, Maya truncata and Mactromeris polynema, forming a delicate carpet across the lagoon floor, from 2 to 6 meters depth. Tomorrow's low tide would expose the shallow flats, but today they lay hidden beneath frigid currents, vulnerable to the slightest contamination. Behind Annika, a bachelor herd of walruses hauled out on an adjacent ice floe. Among them lounged Bron, a colossal bull whose ivory tusks curved like scimitars, each marked with worn grooves from past sparring bouts. His mottled hide, pale pink where sun-baked, dark gray where water wetted, glistened in the dawning light. Bron's eyes, small and obsidian, tracked the researchers as they set up monitoring tripods, his whiskers twitching at the scent of diesel from the camp's generator. Annika greeted her team. Deploy the sampling probes along the transect west of the clam beds, every 100 meters, she instructed. Technicians in insulated coveralls unloaded heavy-duty booms and spill response kits from a supply skiff tied to a makeshift dock. Unbeknownst to them, their careful preparations would soon be upended by an unforeseen threat from a leaking oil vessel, and by Bron's thunderous intervention to come. Under the glow of floodlights on the supply skiff, radar buoys at Icefjord Lagoon's mouth registered the first traces of an oil slick at 12:15 a.m. A thin film, jet black against the cold water, spiraled inward with the tidal currents. Technician Lars Holm called out, "Slick at 300 meters off the western spit and closing." Dr. Annika Sorensen accelerated her tablet's live map feed. The spill model algorithm predicted landfall on the clam flats in 1 hour, 45 minutes, unless contained. The team launched 2 rapid deployment skiffs, carrying inflatable booms and skimmers. But as they prepared to head out, satellite comms crackled. The aging tanker MV Arctic Dawn, charted to transit north of Icefjord, had struck a submerged shoal and ruptured a portside storage tank. Captain Ingrid Rumer of the tanker's bridge had radioed a distress call at 11:50 p.m., reporting a 2-square-kilometer slick drifting toward the lagoon. By 1 a.m., the black sheen had reached 150 meters from the clam beds, already coating mussel beds and threatening juvenile clams critical to the delta's ecosystem. Annika barked orders. Deploy booms at grid points A1 and B2. Angle them to deflect the flow northward. Set skimmers to vacuum the pooled oil. The technicians sprinted across the slick water, deploying booms in the pre-surveyed positions. Yet, despite their fastest efforts, the oil's momentum, driven by a rising tide, pushed the slick relentlessly toward the sensitive benthic zone. As Annika monitored pressure readings on the boom's anchor lines, spiking under the oil's weight, hope waned. The containment line bulged ominously. In the dim light, Bron and his herd rubbed their bristled hides against the ice floe above, nostrils flaring at the acrid scent. Unseen by the researchers, the walruses were preparing to play a far larger role than any boom or skimmer in preventing environmental disaster. Just as the containment booms strained under the oil's relentless advance, a seismic rumble rolled across Icefjord Lagoon. On the adjacent ice floe, Bron the walrus braced his massive shoulders against the slick surface. His whiskered snout flared in a slow inhale, drawing in the briny Arctic air. Technicians paused mid-deployment, scanning the shoreline with headlamps. Then, Bron exhaled. What emerged was not a gentle blowhole burst, but a gale-force gale. A thunderous hrawl, hrawl that echoed between fjord walls. The sound pressure, measured later at 140 decibels by buoy-mounted sensors, pushed against the lagoon's still water like a piston. At the surface, Concentric waves formed instantly, each crest 1.5 meters high and traveling outward at 3 meters per second. Dr. Annika Sorensen watched in stunned silence as the first wave struck the leading edge of the oil slick. Its dark boundary, initially mere centimeters from the booms, was thrust backward by 20 meters, forming a clean break between oil and clam beds. A second and third wave, each time to bronze deep snort repeats, reinforced the reversal, sending oil drifting northward along the western shore where skimmers waited in shallow coves. On the ice floe, the bachelor herd tumbled and snorted in unison as Braun repeated his wave-making exhalations, 3 gruff blasts, a 1-second pause, then 2 final blasts, mirroring the pulse of the incoming tide. Annika, fingers trembling, keyed her radio. "All teams, hold boom placement. We've got natural pushback." Crews watched the oil's edge recoil, then pivot along the diverted current, channeled safely away from the clam flats. In that surreal moment, walrus and human efforts converged. Braun's instinct-driven snort became a force of nature harnessed to redirect an ecological threat. The lagoon's surface, once a canvas of destruction, now shimmered with the promise of recovery. Proof that in the Arctic's fragile realm, the deepest alarms can come from the mightiest mammal's call. Back at the camp's command tent, Dr. Annika Sorensen replayed high-speed drone footage of Braun's snorts. The video, shot at 240 frames per second, revealed each explosive exhalation generating a dome of water uplift that propagated as a radial wave. Annika froze the frame on the first pulse, measuring the wave crest height at 1.5 meters and its travel speed at 3 meters per second across a known 20-meter span to the oil's leading edge. She overlaid these observations onto her hydrodynamic computer model. By inputting the wave's amplitude and speed, the model calculated the momentum transfer to the oil slick's surface layer. The simulation confirmed that Braun's 3 initial waves, each separated by 2 seconds, imparted sufficient shear force to reverse the slick's 0.5 knots per second eastward drift and redirect it along a northwest heading of 315 degrees true. Next, Annika combined tidal data, 0.4 meters rising tide at 0.2 meters per second, with the wave-induced backflow to predict the slick's new trajectory. The model showed a clean diversion into the lagoon's western cove, where containment skimmers were stationed. She annotated the real-time map feed. Wave pulses plus rising tide equals 20 meters pushback, plus 30 degrees trajectory shift. Oil bypasses clam flats. Marine engineer Lars Holm pointed to salinity and temperature gradients. Cooler, denser water in the cove would trap the reversed slick, facilitating skimmer recovery. Annika adjusted the boom angles accordingly. Boom A rotated from 90 degrees to 110 degrees. Boom B from 270 degrees to 290 degrees, creating a funnel into the skimmer zone. With the physics validated, the team executed the revised boom deployment. Within minutes, the live model's predictions matched the slick's movement on the water. The oil glided safely past the clam beds and into the held cove. Dr. Sorensen exhaled, relief flooding her voice. Nature's wave plus human planning. A perfect synergy. With Annika's hydrodynamic model confirming the wave-induced diversion, the response team moved swiftly to synchronize their containment measures with Braun's natural intervention. On the lagoon's western spit, technicians in orange survival suits prepared 2 additional skiffs stocked with reinforced booms and oil-absorbent mats. Annika positioned herself on a rising gravel bar where she could see both the bay of skimmers and Braun's haul-out flow. Through a portable VHF link, she instructed skimmer lead Jonas Petrov, deploy the secondary boom at 110 degrees true when you see Braun prepare his next snort sequence. 3 deep inhalations. Jonas replied, copy that, standing by. Below, Braun's bachelor herd shifted restlessly. At precisely 5:22 p.m., Braun inhaled deeply, lifting his tusked head skyward. Annika's eyes locked on her stopwatch. 2 seconds, 4 seconds. Then he exhaled in a rumbling hurrah that deflected another wave into the pre-aligned booms. As predicted, The wave arrived at the skimmer zone 6 seconds later, its leading edge pushing the remaining oil slick neatly into the cove. Jonas signaled, "Boom in position," and alongside him, the skimmer crews launched their vacuum arms into the water, skimming the concentrated slick into onboard containment tanks. The absorbent mats snagged the remaining sheen, and boom tenders tightened the lines to prevent backflow as the tide continued to rise. Meanwhile, Annika relayed updated coordinates to boom deployment lead Fatima Kaur. Shift boom C to 150 degrees true, match the next predicted wave crest. Fatima, aboard the northern barrier barge, adjusted the hydraulically controlled boom arm as Braun delivered 2 final snorts, separated by the model's expected 2s interval. The third wave crested precisely at the barge's bow, funneling residual oil into the waiting skimmers. The combined effect of Braun's thunderous snorts and the perfectly timed human maneuvers created a dynamic containment system. Nature's wave pulses pushed the oil away from the clam beds, while the booms and skimmers captured it before it could re-encroach. By 6 p.m., satellite overlays confirmed the slick had been fully corralled into the recovery cove, leaving the sensitive benthic habitats untouched. As the crews cheered, Braun stood majestically on the ice, his deep snorts now gentle huffs as the threat subsided. Annika sketched a final update on her digital dashboard. Walrus wave responses synchronized with boom angles. 100% containment success. In that orchestrated moment, human technology and Braun's instinctive power had merged to save an ecosystem, proving that the greatest solutions often arise when we work with, rather than against, nature's mighty guardians. By 6:15 p.m., the coordinated booms, angled precisely at 110 degrees, 290 degrees, and 150 degrees true, had funneled the entire oil slick into the designated recovery cove. 3 vacuum skimmers, each capable of processing 500 liters per minute, churned through the pooled crude, transferring it into sealed containment tanks. Technicians monitored flow rates on handheld displays. 450 liters per minute, 475 liters per minute, then tapering to 50 liters per minute as the sheen thinned. Dr. Annika Sorensen dispatched 2 dive teams to inspect the clam beds for residual contamination. Each diver wore rebreather gear and carried a YSI multiparameter probe, recording dissolved hydrocarbon levels at 10 centimeters above the sediment. Across 10 transects spanning the flats, from 2 meters to 6 meters depth, they logged readings below 0.5 parts per million, well under the 5 parts per million safety threshold for bivalve health. Meanwhile, water column samples were collected at 1-meter intervals using Niskin bottles. Laboratory assays, conducted on site in the mobile chem lab, showed polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, at less than 0.2 parts per billion, indicating negligible uptake by planktonic communities. Salinity and dissolved oxygen profiles remained stable, 34.8 parts per thousand and 8.2 milligrams per liter, respectively. Onshore, sediment cores were extracted using a push core sampler. Subsurface analysis, top 5 centimeters, revealed no detectable oil droplets under fluorescence microscopy. Soft-shell clams collected for bioassays exhibited greater than 95% filtration rates compared to control groups, and no signs of stress protein induction in their gill tissues. As daylight waned, skimmers reported 98% of the spill volume recovered, 180 cubic meters of crude out of an estimated 185 cubic meters released. The leftover sheen on open water measured just 0.01 square meters, easily managed by absorbent boom strips. With containment achieved, the team transitioned to ecological monitoring, deploying time series settlement plates to track larval recruitment on the clam flats. Above it all, Braun and his herd remained on their ice floe, lifting their heads in synchronized snores, each a muted echo of their earlier snorts. Annika paused to watch them, logging the event as an unprecedented case study in biotic-assisted spill response. In the Arctic's fragile embrace, containment and recovery had succeeded not by technology alone, but through the thunderous power of an unlikely marine sentinel. By the next morning's pale Arctic light, Icefjord Lagoon glimmered pristine once more. Dr. Annika Sorensen convened the Marine Conservation Institute team in the heated command tent, walls plastered with maps of the lagoon, drone imagery, and time-lapse graphs of oil movement. Around her, technicians sipped hot tea as satellite feeds confirmed no residual slick was drifting toward the clam beds. Annika cleared her throat. Yesterday, Braun's Thunderous Snorts bought us the window we needed, she began, pointing to a composite display showing wave-induced backflow synchronized with boom deployment. But we can't rely on chance. We need a formal protocol to integrate walrus behavior into our spill response plans. She outlined the newly drafted Guardians of the Fjord protocol. Behavioral monitoring stations. Install remote cameras and hydrophones on key haul outflows to detect preparatory walrus behaviors, deep inhalations, head lifts, through machine learning algorithms trained on Braun's snort signatures. Acoustic playback systems. Deploy underwater speakers programmed to emit low-frequency cues that elicit herd snorting, creating controlled waves at precise tidal windows to reinforce boom effectiveness. Tidal wave synchronization. Integrate walrus wave data with tidal models, automating boom orientation adjustments via GPS-linked winches to match predicted snort-generated wave pulses. Community-led watch. Train Inuit coastal communities to recognize walrus haul-out alarms and coordinate local skiff deployments in tandem with research teams. Wildlife welfare measures. Ensure that any acoustic playback stays within safe decibel levels, no more than 130 decibels underwater, to avoid stressing the animals. As Annika spoke, bristled heads of bull and cow walruses appeared on the tent's live video feed, their bodies rising slowly in synchronized breaths at the edge of the flow. Behind the screen, Lars Holm adjusted the hydrophone sensitivity, nodding in approval. By noon, the protocol had ministry approval. A formal memorandum of understanding was signed between the Marine Conservation Institute, regional spill response authorities, and local indigenous councils. Funds were allocated for 3 new monitoring stations at each major haul-out site in Icefjord and nearby bays. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Annika walked onto the ice floe, the scent of brine sharp in her nostrils. Braun rumbled a soft snort, a natural cue, followed by 5 members of his herd joining in a gentle chorus. In the fading light, she whispered her thanks to the Guardians of the Fjord, knowing that their instinctive power would now be channeled into a lasting shield for the lagoon's fragile clam flats. In the years to come, when tankers reported breaches or leaks off the Arctic coast, responders would look to the walrus haul-outs first, trusting that the deep-voiced snorts of Braun's descendants would herald both warning and salvation, a living legacy of nature's greatest protectors.